Hi, I'm Gale Brewer, the Manhattan Borough President, and this is Represent NYC on Manhattan Neighborhood Network. Using data in civic life used to take lots of time and work. You would need staff finding and compiling numbers by hand, but computers, modern systems like 311, and new policies like the open data law I passed in 2013 have changed that. Now we have lots of data sets just waiting for someone to use them. In 2014, my office started a program with BetaNYC, CUNY, and the Fund for the City of New York called the Civic Innovation Fellowship, which is now supported by the Sloan Foundation. Students are trained in how to use data in public service, and then they help local community boards identify and solve problems. In partnership with Microsoft, my office and BetaNYC are also working on a tool to make it easier than ever to view municipal open data at the community board level without special training or software. Here to talk about this and other exciting work we're doing on open data are Deputy Borough President Aldrin Bonilla, Noel Hidalgo, Executive Director of BetaNYC, and Emily Goodman, Associate Director of our Civic Innovation Fellows Program. Noel, can you get us started? Tell us a little about what the students have been working on, and then Emily can jump in, and then Aldrin can jump in. So I'm really excited to have you. First of all, it's great for me to have three people I know well, because often it's three people I have no idea who they are. So I'm really excited to have family.
Well, great. Gale, it's great to be in your company. Since we started this endeavor many years ago, looking at open data and trying to make open data useful, we've gotten to the point where 311 has improved its data quality and the city's improved their data quality, where we can now create a series of steps and a series of classes for undergraduate students to help them understand the civic nature of open data. And so for the last 2 years with your office, we've had and employed the students to first look at what are the opportunities that exist within the community boards, trying to think of where community boards can exist within the 21st century and kind of map out kind of the gaps. And then this past year, we've been able to develop three prototypes. The first is Board Stat, which is a statistical program, which you mentioned, which is in partnership with Microsoft. Board Track, which is an attendance tracking tool. And then we've been working with Do It to outline WordPress for all of the different community boards. And so
Emily, how did you get involved in this? How did you decide to become involved with this wonderful project?
Well, I met BetaNYC and Noel in 2014 when I was doing my fieldwork for my dissertation research, and was very taken by the whole movement of open data and civic technology that BetaNYC was spearheading in New York. So I've known BetaNYC for years, but I moved back to New York in August after completing my PhD at Cornell, and there was an opportunity to partner with Noel to work with the students and with the community boards to develop these tools. So my particular strength, I think, in the program was to help formalize the curriculum that had already been in the works for the past couple of years, and really give the students a really fine education when it comes to what is open data, how to analyze it, how to visualize it, and how to map it.
And Aldrin, as Deputy Borough President, you have changed the trajectory for community boards in terms of giving them all of these workshops and tools. How do you think this work is fitting into what the community boards are doing? And then, of course, you were the dean of a college at CUNY, so you have that background also. Noel is the one that's doing a lot of the training, but it is Aldrin who brought CUNY to the process. So how do you think this fits in between the community boards and CUNY? How does this help the community boards and CUNY students?
Yeah, what we're trying to do here is make open data relevant to the individuals that are best able to use it to solve real community problems and engage their community civically around data-driven decisions. So we really want to answer the so what question. So open data in terms of the what has been transformative in terms of allowing this treasure trove of data be freely available through a portal. Then the then what is, well, now that all this information is available, what kind of tools and skill sets, which is what Emily and Noel were talking about, can we help young people learn so that they can be the first in this new wave of an industry that's being created? For community board members who are 50 volunteers, enormously busy, but have a great deal of oversight over city agency delivery of services and others.
And 12 in Manhattan.
12 of them in
12
Manhattan. Yeah, not until we answer the question, so what? For them. So what does this mean for me in terms of the work that we're doing? Will this really take a root in the community and really gain traction in terms of having open data accessible to the people and to answer different questions around service delivery? So we've worked really hard to have a way in which residents and community board members are trained in open data, where we reduce the barriers to accessing the data, help through the visualization of mapping. When you see something, you have a very different relationship to what the data says than when you just look at tables. So we feel that mapping is a great tool that community board members can have. And then the third aspect of it is asking the right questions, but having the questions come authentically and indigenously from the community boards, whether it's around school seats, whether it's around dangerous intersections, whether it's around information for storefronters or shopkeepers. Noise is a big one. So we really want to make sure that the availability of data is not a missed opportunity because the people don't know how to use it. And that's, trying to answer the so what question.
Because I know students have completed 750,000 service hours in the last 3 years. That's a huge amount. So I guess, Noel, picking up on what Aldrin was talking about, I know you want to give some maybe more specific examples of how the data actually works, but I must admit the tools that you're using, and I know maybe just a few of them. I know what Slack is, GitHub you have to explain, Discourse you have to explain, Waffle Point 10, no idea, 311, certainly know what that is, Socrata I know, Excel, and CardinalDB. But these are just some examples that the students are learning, and of course the community boards will be the beneficiaries.
Correct.
But jump in, there's so many things to talk about this morning.
So the tools that you just mentioned are the tools that our modern startup or technology ecosystem is using. So we come from this blended world of working in and out of government and working for startups and working for technology companies. And so we wanted to make sure that our CUNY students are adept and trained in the same tools that they would if they needed to go out and get a first-year internship or like the next job after this. And so we use that not only to communicate across ourselves and communicate across the team, which are the professional tools that we use, but we make sure that we train them. And one of those tools is Excel. Excel has been a very powerful data tool for well over a decade. It's one of the fundamental tools that we have to teach when it comes down to data manipulation. And in those service hours that they're working on, we assign them projects to essentially find correlations within the data. And so one of the correlations that we found out was in Community Board 5, from 2010 to 2014, the #1 service complaint or the service request in 311 was broken Muni meter. And during that time period, the Department of Transportation rolled out and moved from coin to those little kiosks. And it was unusual because it was beyond taxi complaint. It was 11% of the service requests in that in Community Board 5 were around broken Muni meter, and that just stood out. And it's like, well, what's going on? Well, in the 311, we had the students go down and find out that it was actually the fact that there was no paper tape in those particular Muni meters. And since then, the Department of Transportation has gone out and changed the way that they do Muni meters, where you can now pay with your cell phone, you can pay with cards, and they've also changed their practice so that way there's more paper tape in those different Muni meters. And so in those different service hours, we allow the students and we assign them those tasks so that way they can find out how open data relates to real world government service delivery.
Are there some students who stand out or some exciting moments with the students in terms of their activities and their interests? And I do love CUNY students. Aldrin knows them even better than I do, but I do teach at Hunter, and I do love their background and their interest and the way in which they approach life.
Yeah, the CUNY students were fantastic. And we were lucky to have about 10 of them, and each one of them brought something special to the group. And one great thing about the program, I think, is that it really embraces students from any major to participate. So, we've had students more from a liberal arts background and definitely from a computer background as well, but it brings a diversity of perspective. to our work together, which I think is really healthy and interdisciplinary and exciting. And we're really looking forward to our next crop of students.
That's fabulous. Let's talk a little bit more about BoardStat, because I think it's exciting that you're pulling this off. Because, talk a little bit about BoardStat, and then Aldrin jump in.
Sure. Well, BoardStat, in our gap analysis that we did two years ago, the number one kind of request to us was make 311 data more useful so that way we have a better understanding. And that kind of like challenge has been a significant challenge for us this past year. And so BoardStat is a dashboard that's pulling from the city's open data portal into Microsoft Power BI. And it's a series of lenses that visualize information. And Emily and the students and I've been able to join a few of these discussions where we go out and we talk to community board district managers, we talk to the chairs, and we point blank ask them, well, we've developed these series of lenses on the data. How would you use this information in your decision-making processes? I think we've done 6 interviews, something like that. And each one has enlightened us to a different perspective of how 311 data would be used and maybe cross-referenced with other data. And we hope to have this tool ready by the end of June. And that will provide a community board by community board view of 311 data going back to 2010 and provide different lenses that enable you to see through time top 10 service complaints, the top 20 descriptors, the top locations, and then have a little map and then be able to navigate the trends and analysis.
So Aldrin, this is what they've been asking for.
Yes.
So talk about it, because you do the borough service cabinet, you do the borough board, and then you do the workshops. How does this fit into their requests?
Yeah, no, we're hoping that it will aid with efficiency and effectiveness of their work. So when you look at data either in a table form or on the aggregate, you miss a lot of the nuances. So being able through a BoardStat to look at data across geography. So within a community board, you're able to see different clusters or how different trends of complaints in this case. But also in terms of BoardStat, you'll be able to see year to date or look at seasonal effects. So it's one thing to empower the community knowing exactly where in the geography of their community board they should deploy additional attention or maybe write letters to a particular city agency that might not be performing based on some kind of benchmark that the data allows you to see, but also across time, it lets you to see increases or decreases on particular types of street conditions or service delivery conditions that community board members are very much empowered by the charter to have oversight over. So I think it's a tool and it's a useful tool. It's going to require adaptation, some culture shift, but what's good about it is that once community boards are able to use this kind of template in this tool, the populating of the data will be pretty much automatic with very few technical skills needed, on an ongoing basis. So they'll be able to use this, for every meeting monthly. It'll be updated, and we feel that it's going to help better decision making or help discipline the discussion around very particular issues.
Well, it's important to me. I was on my community board before being elected to the city council, and what is interesting is we would always have a district service cabinet locally, and the agencies, be it health or buildings, they always had the data, and the community boards did not, and so we were always at a disadvantage. And then the second is, of course, every community board once a month has a general meeting, and it's always been my dream, and it's becoming reality soon, to be able to have up on a screen, provided there's access in these basements of different buildings where the boards meet, to have the data so that people would know that exactly what you're stating, that we have a consistent focus on what needs to get done. Otherwise, you can be all over the place depending on who's calling. So, Emily, when you have these meetings with the community boards and the interns, how does that, what happens and how does the interaction take place?
Yeah, I mean, I've been just heartwarmed by the sort of enthusiasm and seriousness with which the people who we've had these conversations with bring to this tool. They are helping us figure out how to make it better for their actual use. And that is what I think is the beauty of this whole arrangement here, is that we're here to help develop it, but we are like day to day checking in and making sure that it's what they want to see and to have and what kind of information they want. So those conversations have been truly, truly important and have made me realize even more that the importance of the user in the experience of this kind of technology tool. So it's been great.
So, go ahead, Noel.
I'll tell you some of the responses for the students last year and the ones this year that had some chances to deal with district managers and chairs is that, community boards is this kind of like under the covers type of government, right? It's the lay government, it's the people-powered government. It's the place where there's so much activity that's going on, but so few people know about it because they either have a poor website that advertises when their meetings are happening, or it's locked away in some type of seemingly backroom deals. But yet the students, when they've gone and they've engaged with these people, they're enlightened about the fact that this is something that they could have access to, that they have aspirations to potentially be on their own community board. We actually have a candidate for next year's class who's a Brooklyn community board member right now, and as a CUNY student. And so from our just 2 years of engaging with these students, their civic engagement opportunities have been turned on, and it's great to see that for the last 2 years, just to see how excited they are.
That's a wonderful byproduct, because Aldrin and I and others were always trying to get younger people to be on the community boards. Sometimes I send my Hunter students to community boards, not in Manhattan, they go in many cases, and they're the youngest by like 30 years. So it's exciting to know that there are civic tech folks interested in community boards. That's a whole new wonderful category. Mm-hmm. So Aldrin, looking at all of this, hopefully by the end of June, it'll be a board stat that is ready to be used. So what do you think the community boards, how do we get them ready to be using this material?
I think training, a lot of training. We have to do use cases in terms of why should they care, or how is this useful, how would this make their work differently. And we have to make sure we continue to provide the technical supports to allow them to answer the kind of questions that they want to. But the analogy is there in terms of open data has created enormous amount of startups. It's created jobs, it's created new industry. So what we want is those individuals who have been able to use open data and leverage open data for a business plan and marketize it, we feel that there's the equal opportunity in the public space. So open data is public data. It should be used for the public good. So where you have open data being leveraged for shopkeepers to know what kind of licenses they need, what kind of fines are out there, it pushes information out to them. Whether it's using open data to see tenant harassment and no heat complaints, and creating a log that's compliant with what the city and the judges need, so that it's acceptable. So all these examples, we're saying, let's push the envelope further to the public sphere so that there's this kind of model where open data could be used at community boards and leveraged in a way where it's relevant to district managers, it's relevant to the chair of transportation, it's relevant to the chair of the SLA committee, so that when they have business before them, data helps inform some of the decisions that they come to.
Well, this is exciting because I know that in general, your students and you are also helping the city of New York improve the open data portal. So why don't you just talk a little bit about that, because that also is going to be the role of the community board district managers. That's not, I believe the agencies are trying, having been there since day one and been in all these meetings, but talk a little bit about how do you improve the data, because that's part of the issue.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like anything else, any tool, you improve tools by using that tool, right? You find its weaknesses, you find opportunities to make it a stronger, more useful tool. And so with our practice around 311, we've been able to find the inconsistencies within the 311 data, and then work with the Open Data team and 311 to make sure that the data is as accurate as possible. This past year, we were able to find this little wrong geocode that was affecting all community boards greater than 9, which is a huge thing, because it's a citywide bug within the data set. And then we worked with we worked with the Open Data team, and we worked with 311 to ensure, and I forget whoever runs the geocoding app, they also brought in, and we're like, here's the problem, we documented everything, and we presented, like, we need this fixed because our tools are based upon this one numeric field, which which is what you've calculated. And so, our aspiration is that these things run through a user-centered design cycle. So you improve them by using them, and then you learn by using them, and then hopefully you gather that feedback and put it back into the system, and then you go through and iterate again and again and again and again. And that's what the practice that we're using around BoardStat. That's what we're using with the data. We're really fortunate to have the municipal partners that are willing to take our feedback, because that hasn't always been the case. And that has slowly moved the city's open data portal to be more responsive and to be, listening to the users.
I think it must be exciting, Emily, for the students to know that when they find something that's challenging and off base, that they can go to city agencies. Government's not supposed to be responsive. Is that something that they've also learned up, kind of like an ancillary aspect of the project?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that the students are very impressed by how impactful this experience could be for them in terms of helping city government improve data quality and services. We had one student who noticed that starting in 2013, the complaint type for heat changed from heating to heat and hot water. So if you search for heating complaints prior to 2014, you'll find nothing. So little things like that. I could go on and on. There's others, but these were the kinds of things that they discovered about these sort of small matters that actually have a major impact on how we understand what's going on in our city.
Aldrin, go ahead.
Young people are interacting with this data in very sophisticated ways, and the questions that they're raising are amazing, particularly from a workforce development and youth development point of view. So in dealing with the data, young people have come to a realization in terms of 311 data, for example. And this is a tough question or issue. They come to the conclusion, well, is 100 people, different people, calling on one complaint weighed in the same way as one person calling 100 times on one complaint? That's a tough question to grapple with, but it's an important one in terms of how much credence to give to some of the data. They've also been dealing with there's one young person that dealt with issues of housing and tenant harassment, thinking and using words like he wanted to come up with a predictive algorithm of an early warning signal that precedes when buildings would be threatened of being vacated or being converted. So I thought that was very interesting that this young person is thinking already of predictive algorithms and very much the language of startup entrepreneurs and others. And it's fascinating. They've also presented to City University presidents, to CUNY presidents. They've presented at legislative breakfasts. They've presented to community board chairs and district managers. So their presentation skills, their communication skills, their analytical and reasoning skills are just, the growth is amazing. So even from a youth development, workforce development point of view, this open data training and curriculum, I've seen it do things that I haven't seen in a while.
No, I think these extra assets for the person's growth are phenomenal. And I think, it's cutting edge. I mean, nobody's ever done this before. And so I think they're getting skills that they wouldn't normally get, right?
Yeah. Well, it's forcing us to develop skills that we wouldn't have thought of. Leading into this particular year, we started off with a workshop class that was co-developed at Pratt Institute, which was a multi-hour workshop that then turned into a 7-hour-long kind of like online video course that you can get. If you go to the BetaNYC YouTube page, you can see the 7 hours of material that we have. You can get access to the 100-page workbook that we've developed for this class. But then we were kind of confronted with the situation of like, okay, now that we've exploded this curriculum into being so detailed and nuanced, how do we make it simple and simpler to deal in a quicker manner? And so now we're working on flashcards in a card game that's kind of a Mad Libs meets Cards Against Humanity that teaches you not only the 311 data set, but also teaches you how to use the Socrata Open Data Portal, so that way you can develop some of these insights while you're sitting on a bus, while you're sitting in the subway. You can just be going through and trying to think of, how do I answer these questions, which are just simple questions like, how many service complaints are in a particular geography based upon time? And it just starts, it's training. And these are new skills that we're developing, and we have to thank the opportunity that we have with you to do this.
All right, well, it's all of us together, and the foundation's help for sure. But I think what's exciting is the relationship between the young people and the community. and using this open data as the glue that's tying it all together, and it is amazing. Do you want to add something, Emily?
Yeah, the students, they really enjoyed working with the data itself. It has this kind of tangible quality, even though it's on the computer. I felt that way too when I first started it myself, that there was something sort of fun about it, and the students enjoyed that very much, even ones who were sort of intimidated by it in the beginning, maybe. Yeah, and one student who was sure he was going to do, work for a banking firm or something after he graduated from, I think it was John Jay. After the fellowship, he said, "I think I'm just going to check out what other agencies are in this building and just, try to work for another city agency, maybe downstairs." So yeah, they definitely enjoyed like the melding of data and technology and city government in new ways.
Yeah, we're going to have to wrap up. I'm sorry, I hate to do this, but I want to thank my guests, Deputy Borough President Aldrin Bonilla, Noel Hidalgo, and Emily Goldman, for joining me today to talk about our open data projects and the Civic Innovation Fellows. This is exciting work that can change how decisions are made, how services are delivered, and how communities are shaped in our city for years to come. I'm Gale Brewer, the Manhattan Borough President. You can follow me on Facebook or Twitter. My name on both services is Gale A. Brewer. If you'd like email updates, please sign up for our newsletter. Thank you for watching Represent NYC on Manhattan Neighborhood Network. Thank you all very, very much. Like I said, it's great to have friends who are doing such wonderful things. Thank you.